Welcome, everybody. It is Thursday. We are all Gemini vegetarians. We are talking about the 20th anniversary of Legally Blonde. And my name is Joe Crowe. I am one of your co-directors on the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. And while you may, some stick in the muds out there or in here may be saying, but Legally Blonde is not a sci-fi movie. Well, get your own YouTube channel. And so, and specifically not to review or talk about Legally Blonde. That can be the title of your channel. Everything but Legally Blonde.
Hey, if we have WKRP in Cincinnati and Dallas at Dragon Con as part of this track in the past.
In the past, we have done
I think
that.
we can, after all, as Dragon Con likes to say, it is a pop culture convention.
Mm-hmm. So we can talk about Legally Blonde now. A quick moment of Dragon Con news. The Land of the Lost cast is coming this year.
Woo! Huzzah.
And they were here a few years ago, like in the first couple of years that Gary and I were the co-directors, and they are the best. They are the three people that are coming, Will, Holly, and Chaka, and I'm not going to say their actor names because I don't know them off the top of my head. And
but if you go to the Dragon Con social media, it's there.
You're sure, whatevs.
And if you hunt through the classic track image pile, you will find a picture that was done by a friend of Joe's and mine, where he drew me as a Sleestack and Joe as Chaka.
Very accurate.
Yes.
And so, with that bit of news and information out of the way, now, ladies and gentlemen, we are very excited to talk about Legally Blonde. This year is the 20th anniversary. Is it
like
the best?
2 days ago. 2 days
ago. 2 days ago was the 20th anniversary. See, that's how on top of things we are. So let's go around the interwebs and introduce everybody. One internet south of me, my co-director, Gary. How are you?
I am well, and I am ready to pledge Delta Nu.
One internet northeast of Gary, Michael.
Hello, it's good to be back here. And you know what I will do? I will argue till my dying breath that Legally Blonde is a sci-fi movie because the streets of Boston were virtually empty and easy to navigate. That only happens in science fiction films.
Yep.
And there was not really any snow in the winter, and that doesn't happen either.
So it's maybe a post-apocalyptic kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I was there in May once, and there was snow.
Yeah.
So the seasons are reversed in Boston.
Yes.
Along with the traffic.
And two internets away from me, ToniAnn.
Hello, everybody. I am very excited to talk about college life because I don't do that on a regular basis. I do.
No,
I do.
That's not your job. And 1, 2, 3 internets away from me, Sue Kisenwether. How are you?
I'm excellent. You guys know me. I usually talk about Star Trek. Today we're talking about Legally Blonde, mostly because I would not shut up about it. So you can thank or blame me, depending on your perspective.
Here's the thing. Sue says we should do a panel. Me and Gary say, okay. And here we go.
Unlimited cosmic power.
That's right.
Itty bitty living space.
Sue will not be denied.
In fact, on the Dragon Con schedule that Gary and I are working on, we just have a whole chunk that just says Sue does whatever.
Yep.
I mean, that has happened before. That's how we wound up with a Broadway musicals panel on the Classics Track.
That is 100%.
Yes. And hopefully there will be more than panels soon. But
very soon. So, Legally Blonde. Did anyone have way high expectations for this movie when it came out? Because, but go ahead, Sue.
I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those summer blockbuster kind of flicks.
No.
Although myself and my no, I believe we just got married. So yeah, we saw it in the theater, and it was great. It's still great. It's, go ahead.
I think what it is that like now it is a familiar narrative, right? But at the time, 20 years ago, it was breaking the narrative and it was changing it up. And I think if I recall correctly, nobody expected that, right?
Yeah.
They expected a comedy about a dumb blonde. They did not expect a like surprisingly feminist take on a lot of things.
Yeah, I remember when it came out expecting it to not be that good. I mean, because again, like it looked like, oh, it's going to be another movie making full of nothing but dumb blonde jokes. I mean, Reese Witherspoon was becoming, a big name. But I went in to see it expecting to hate it. I don't even remember why I went to go see it. I think it was just my friends and I were there. It's like, okay, well, let's just go see this. And I was just blown away by that it wasn't just, making that the main character wasn't the joke.
That's the thing. It wasn't like I believe, I'm pretty certain Election had already come out with Reese Witherspoon.
Broderick. Yeah.
And I thought she was great in that. So I guess I was expecting some of that in this, completely different and not cynical at all, which I did not expect, and very pleased about that.
I don't remember the first time that I watched it, but I know that I've watched it several times, and I'm pretty sure it was one of those, maybe I was like surfing the channels after it came out, and you're like, oh, I don't know, well, Reese Witherspoon maybe, and then like it kind of sucks you in, and you get invested in the story and seeing how it's going to turn out. And actually my best friend just came in today, and we watched it over dinner because I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, I really want to watch this, and most of it has aged very well, and that's good and bad because we're still dealing with some of the issues, which is not so great, but it's still like, even though it came out 20 years ago, it's still something people can relate to. And how, I mean, I do actually, teach college kids and advise them. And sometimes I have students who are like engineers and then they want to go to law school, and then others who want to go into industry, and people want to go into, you could do anything you want, and it's not unexpected but at the time, 20 years ago, that totally was. If you did this major, you did this thing when you graduated. You didn't like divert from that path. And I felt that same way when I went to graduate school. I started my undergrad in engineering, and then I went to counseling, and everybody's like, you did what? You did what? Engineers have feelings? And I was like, yes, we do. We don't want to talk about them. But that's I think the most interesting part of this movie is it sort of broke out what you're expected to do when you graduate from college, along with all the other things that it talks about.
Yeah, it flew under the radar for me. Like I didn't even see anything about it when it came out, and when I recall, when we first saw it, my wife and I did, the thing that grabbed me was, it starts out as that typical dumb blonde make fun of the movie. And the point where it grabbed me by the throat and said, this is different, is when she's out shopping for a wedding dress, or a dress for that night's proposal. And she's doing the dumb blonde thing. But then when the store owner tries to put one over on her, she flips around and says, here's all the facts, and lays them all out. Like, you should have tried harder to baffle me with this. And I was like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. She's smart. That flipped the script on it. And at that point, I was completely hooked and ready to go with this movie.
But even the admissions board in the universe and the audience is often discounts her, right? Yeah. Oh, it's a degree in fashion merchandising, history of polka dots. Like, first of all, that's a business degree,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's a business degree. It's a marketing degree. And it's from what is supposed to be UCLA. Like that's nothing to sneeze at.
And she studied pretty much on her own for the LSATs, and she had a bar she had to meet, and she exceeded it. And it was just like, what? This was hard to do. You know?
That is my favorite line.
They establish really early on, like before we even arrive in Cambridge, that Elle can do anything she sets her mind to.
And that's one of the other things I love about this movie, because I remember for a long time there were a lot of people who were like, you know, well, if you want to be a feminist, especially if you want to be a serious feminist, you have to hate pink, and you have to hate all the traditional girly thing. You have to, you know, you have to throw yourself against whatever the system says women should be like. And this movie is like, no, you can love pink and kick ass. You know, that you can be intelligent and interested in fashion or whatever. That's another restriction of the patriarchy in a way.
And getting a 4.0 in college is hard. It's incredibly difficult, because you're not just taking classes relating to that degree, you're taking a breadth of classes in your humanities and social science. You're taking math classes. You're not just taking fashion courses or things like that.
ToniAnn, could you turn up your volume?
Yeah, and again, the degree that they say she has, merchandising, that means that she's figuring out profit margins. She's probably doing accounting. She's not doing, like, this was a real class in my college, so don't at me.
Oh yeah, mine too.
But she's not taking like physics for music majors.
Right.
You know, she's real class at my school. She's taking real like accounting and business mathematics classes.
Yeah, this is not Math is Hard Barbie. This is
Yeah.
I desperately want a Math is Hard Barbie.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is she's not taking fluff classes. She's not doing the I'm just here to get a degree, or my MRS, as I've heard her referred to.
Yeah. And what I liked about it is, well, I like tons of things about it. The supporting cast. Well, in-universe supporting cast, they don't treat Elle as throwaway. It's not like she's the only one in on it, or that gets that she can do this thing that she's attempting to do. It's not like Back to School, where yes, for the first time, I'm comparing Reese Witherspoon to Rodney Dangerfield. It's
only
not
on
like,
the classics track.
You know,
hopefully for the last time.
It might be for the last.
Now you see, now I want that sequel movie, you know, Legally Back to School, where they team up.
Well, yeah. Well, somebody's going to have to play Rodney. He is no longer. But anyway, what I mean is, Rodney Dangerfield was the only one who thought he could do it.
Right.
In Back to School. But in Legally Blonde, she has supporters. It's not just, but she's also super capable, and you don't expect that from her genre of character. And that's like you said, the flipping of the script was just totally out of nowhere.
And she doesn't come into it with the mindset like, you know, this is what she does all the time. She actually learns and grows throughout this film. You know, like when she hits a setback the first time, what does she do? She goes and hides in her room and eats chocolates and throws them at a screen when they talk about marriage. You know, and then later on at the party, when she's tricked into it being a costume party, you know, she has a little bit of a setback there, but she just very quickly gets back on the horse and says, okay, I'm on my own. I'm doubling down on my own, you know, I'm doing this on my own 2 feet. I'm slaughtering the metaphors. I'm sorry. But then, you know, the last one where she gets the boss who's a complete sleazeball.
Yes.
Victor Garber, you know, come on, Victor. It was a very rapid turnaround. Like I've been here before. Whatever. I'm back on doing it this way. I'm doing it my way. So she grew a substantial amount during this entire film. It was amazing to watch that character develop.
Mm-hmm.
And they do the fast forwards really well, where time is passing, not just because there was that little bit of snow in that one scene that was totally unrealistic, but because you realize they're having their exams and you don't just go to school and then boom, you're doing the thing the next day. They made that passage of time go by really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as Jennifer points out in the comments on the YouTube, she had help from her sorority. They helped her study. They helped her get through this, and it wasn't just a magic wave of the hand. Like if we were talking about like the 40th anniversary of Legally Blonde today, I think that would be this movie. It would be she was dumb, but she fluked her way through it.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever would have gotten past the initial motivation of I'm doing this to win my boyfriend back.
And at the end, they would have gotten married.
Yeah, her motivation changes twice, right? Mm-hmm. First, it's I'm going to get my boyfriend back. Then it's I'm going to prove that I'm actually better than you. Like it becomes spite/revenge. Awesome. And then it becomes an actual passion for what she's doing.
Yes, the best callback is when she's like, "Oh, Warner, if I'm gonna be a partner when I'm 30, I need a boyfriend who's not a bonehead," and it's just such a great callback.
That is what they like to call the FU moment, the FU moment. Mm-hmm.
The other thing I recognized on this viewing of the movie too was that if it had been 40 years ago instead of 20 years ago, this movie would have been completely chock full of the male gaze.
Oh,
and I was absolutely surprised that this movie being 2001 is when it came out, is that it didn't rest in that like a lot of other comedies of the era kind of did. It actually was very feminist in its production and direction, not just in the subject matter.
The only scenes I can think of off the top of my head where you could even really argue, male gaze for the audience are her admissions video, right? Where within the bikinis. But even then, she's not like pushing her chest out. She's not posing provocatively. She's just existing in a bikini.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
the contrary is the bend and snap scene, but then the characters are doing that on purpose. That's not a male gaze thing. That's a comedy thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what I was going to say, because that is the only scene I could think of where, like you said, that it could come across as that. And like you said, the whole point of that video is her going, "This is who I am." And you get the feeling that is just her. And I love that it shows she's comfortable in her skin. Mm-hmm. She is very comfortable with who she is.
Yeah.
It also calls out in 2001 that catcalling is a thing that should stop.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was way early.
Yeah. Well, so was the thing that really stuck out to me. I watched this again last night, and I think I had forgotten the exchange, but the introductions when they all get to law school and it's go around and tell us who you are, and or maybe it was the party, but it's the same woman that she meets during introductions. And Elle says after this girl is snarky to her, like, if you had come to a rush party, I at least would have been nice to you.
Yeah.
And then it's shot back. Yeah. Before you called me a slur and something. And right then Elle looks back at her kind of like horrified and insulted that would be thought of her, and says, "I don't use that word."
Right.
That's very early for anything like that, for thinking that way about those words in 2001.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do love every time that Elle gets to show off her smarts. Like that, again, that introduction scene where the one person tries to chirp her up.
Mm-hmm.
And she's able to just flip it around. Like, yeah, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, she she just has to find a method or a way in to display that. Like she's totally fish out of water at law school, but then as soon as she figures out the way to apply herself, she turns on that learning style that she's got and is able to apply it. She's just like, boom, let's go.
Well, it's the same during the trial when at first she like has no idea what she's doing and she's fumbling around, and there's that whole bit about making sure that Chutney was in the shower, and then we see the light bulb go off, and she's like, "Wait a minute, you got a perm." And you took a shower and you said you were washing your hair. Like, and unless you've had a perm and you know those particular things, I remember the first time watching the movie, like not knowing where she's going with that. And then afterwards, just seeing how her whole demeanor changes and her body language, and she's immediately like, this is a thing I know and I'm gonna like rock this.
Yeah. That is just such a great moment. Again, that's another, F yeah moment when she is able to show that, no, I'm not stupid. And she sees something that everybody missed.
Yeah, and she knows it because of who she is.
Yeah.
Right? She's not winning this case despite her background. She's winning it because of her background.
Yes.
Okay, we've got somebody in...
that is Chad. Our good friend Chad from the Execute Chapter 66 podcast.
He was on last week's episode, and I did not know that he worked on this movie.
That's very cool. Welcome to the old club.
Yeah. So, Chad, your assignment between now and the next time you're on a quarantine panel is you got to watch this movie. Come on.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
The sequel's on Tubi for free. I mean,
it really is worth it. Even if you think it's going to be like, I mean, it's silly. It definitely is, but it's also like it's poignant and it's eminently quotable, and it holds up really well. I mean, there are some outdated jokes. Let's talk about it. There is a issue with it is a very white movie.
Yes.
Although that argument can be extended to point out that Cambridge is also a very white city and Harvard is a very white school. So there are conversations to be had about that on every level.
Right.
Yeah. That's a point I wanted to make is like most of the time when we're talking about a movie, especially a comedy that's 20 years old. I mean, like I said, if this movie were from the 80s, comedies age the worst, I think, of all media. Comedy ages the absolute worst. That is an
excellent point. I was not expecting a lot in rewatching this movie. I knew I liked it then, but totally holds up. But yes, but Gary, to your point, what's funny then, or what's acceptable as funny at whatever time a movie comes out, changes immediately.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like when movies, no matter what the year is, when they put in current references.
Instantly dates it.
Yeah.
In my experience, opinion, whichever one you want to call it, I find that the comedy that ages the best is the comedy that's not at someone's expense.
Yes.
Well, sure.
And there's very little comedy at the expense of a character in this film.
Yeah, there's not a single blonde joke throughout the entire thing, which I found shocking, watching it through the first time. And one of the things that Jem points out in the comments on YouTube is the salon is very diverse, which is, I mean, that's if you go to a nail salon in a little strip mall on a main street, you're going to see a diverse group of people because they're just usually walking it like, oh, I need my nails done, or I need my hair done, or this is the person that I go see. And that makes total sense, especially since she was driving around town. She didn't get it like on campus, and so that makes sense. But yeah, that was really the only part where we saw any sort of kind of ethnic diversity. They do the little bit with Enid sort of alluding to the fact that she might be a lesbian, but they never do that.
Mhm.
And you do get a lot more female students than I was expecting,
Mhm.
you know, around
And
that
there's
time.
some diversity in the courtroom. The judge is a black woman. There is the one of the defendants is Latino, you know, and that one's the one that's kind of still played for a joke, right? The gay Latino stereotypes.
Mhm.
But I'm not like coming for it. Like, this is a racist movie, because it's not. In my opinion, anyway, it is a very white movie, and you know, they probably could have done better.
Mhm.
But I mean, for 2001, I'm not
Yeah.
that mad at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about that, about the comedy being at the expense of characters, and the only ones that I can really think of where it's at the expense of the character are the ones that deserve it. The boyfriend,
Yeah.
or the people who try to put her down, Garber are
Yeah.
those are the targets, and those deserve to be the targets.
There's a little bit with the physical comedy with the UPS guy too, but you know, it's also played fairly well. So
Yeah. Because again, it's like I went in expecting a lot of she's a dumb blonde who manages to luck her way through the whole movie, and then that's not what I got at all.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they're going through her admissions tape, you know, yes, maybe they're all looking to make excuses for let's let this hot girl in, but they're really real reasons, right? You are looking for a diversity of backgrounds, because that's what makes great lawyers. It's the same thing that makes great teachers and counselors and literally anything. If everybody has the same background, they're all coming from the same experience. So if you have a fashion major, that's great. They're going to bring something to the party, and clearly Elle does. And she did have a lot of impressive extracurriculars, and she had a wonderful GPA. So all of those things were real legitimate reasons. I know they play it up for they're staring at her video the whole time, but they weren't wrong either.
Yeah, she's got a bunch of extracurriculars, one of which is president of her sorority.
Yes.
Right. And
Which
that,
I
like,
love her sorority.
I was not a part of Greek life. It just wasn't for me. But by all accounts, from my friends who were, like, that's not a small job. You're leading a chapter of a national organization. They're usually charity organizations. You're running a household in the case of, you know, if they've got a sorority house. Not everyone. In Boston, you can't have a sorority house because they're considered brothels. Fun fact.
That's a whole other movie.
If you have,
Ladies and
just real
gentlemen.
quick, the law, at least when I was going to school in Boston, the law was that if you had more than a certain number of women living together in one house that was not official campus housing, it was a brothel. So sorority houses are not allowed in Massachusetts, or at least in Boston. Anyway.
And our good friends Keith and Ren point out that they didn't have Greek light as well in the comments.
Boston has a whorehouse in it. What?
But the point being that, like, maintaining a 4.0 and in any major and being president of a sorority is no small feat. Plus everything else that she's doing, right? They're making jokes about, you know, I judged a tighty-whitey contest, but that's a charity event that she organized.
Yeah.
Right? They're focusing on the what? Well, or they're focusing on the outward appearance of it rather than the substance of what the event is.
They're focusing on the Animal House stereotype.
Yeah.
Rather than. Yeah.
And my wife was in a sorority, and I came at sororities with the same generic criticisms, and she has in the years she has shut all of those down for me. Of course, there are negative aspects to it, but by far, she met friends that she has kept forever since then. And it was a social thing in a good way, because and my daughter is going to go through Rush at her college in just a few weeks, but she's doing it to meet people, to get a handhold in the new scene, the new community that she's going to be a part of. And it's a lot of work. I didn't do Greek life either, Sue, at my college, but I wrote about it constantly in the school paper. And it's hard.
Well, it's
According
also
to
like
everyone.
really apparently very good for you in certain careers.
Oh yeah.
Right, because even if there's somebody who's looking to hire somebody or looking for somebody to mentor, or there's some kind of opportunity, and they see that like you went to this, you were a member of the same sorority as them, that gets you a leg up. Whether it should or not is another conversation. The thing is that it does. That people see something that they connect with and know the experience of, that instantly connects people you've never met before.
Well, they do all the stereotypes sort of in the part where they're in the introduction where they're doing the card, everybody signing the card. You see some of the sisters on the exercising, and some of them are drinking very early in the morning. Some of them are in the bathroom in some states of undress, and there's all these things.
The Animal House stuff.
Yes, the Animal House stuff. And then you clearly see that everybody has different roles to play, and there's, different things. I was in an engineering sorority, and I'm still active in it as an alum. In fact, my friend who's here, I say she's my sorority spouse. We're from two different chapters, but we've, sort of been inseparable since we met. And when we have things to do that our significant others can't be at, we go together. It's just a thing. Now, we didn't have a house. There were lots of things that I can't relate to in some of those things, but when you get to president, you kind of work your way up. You serve on a committee, then you chair a committee, then you do something else on the executive board. Like, so to get to be a president, you're doing all of these things and showing those leadership qualities. And so even if you've not been a part of that life, you still, understand like how she got there and how much of a badass she is by having the opportunity, like Sue said, doing all of these things. And then when you have a house, there's 8 million more things from anybody who's ever owned or lived in a house, making sure that the lights are on, and that, there's not pests, and, that the boards don't fall down. And, I mean, you just have all kinds of stuff. And, I think there are some unrealistic things, like she was living in a room by herself, and that she was able to bring Bruiser with her wherever she went, and there are things that you're just expecting me to believe that this is she knew exactly where she was. No freshman on campus no first year student is ever going to know exactly where they are on campus. You can't tell me that ever. I get lost on campus sometimes, and I've been going on my campus for almost 20 years.
So I was thinking about that, and I'm not convinced that she lives in student housing. But even if she does, at Harvard, even if she does, her family has the money to get her a single. So the single room I'll buy. The dog coming to class in 2001? Nah.
Yeah, no. That's the fantasy part of the movie for the people who are going, but this is a part of it. Look, she had a dog in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. And what's really wild for me, again, is kind of, we touched on a little bit, is again, the fact that it holds up. I can think of like a handful of legal movies that are comedies, like, Jury Duty. You couldn't pay me to watch that movie again. There's this movie, and there's there's My Cousin Vinny.
Oh God, yes.
Which is taught in law school.
Yeah.
That court case is legit. And I think we kind of get the same thing here. Again, it's somebody should have caught the perm thing earlier in figuring this out. But again, that also plays into what the movie pokes fun at is people's assumptions. There are assumptions about Elle. There are assumptions about the defendant that, of course, she shot the guy trying to get money.
Mm-hmm.
And shows how those assumptions are wrong and undermines them or flips the script on them. And there are not a lot of movies that will do that.
And also, it's very kind of early, Gary, you bring up a good point about their age gap relationship, that everybody assumed that, oh, she's in it for the money. And it's like, well, she had her own money. And then she's even telling them, she's in it for other reasons that are more physical. And nobody seems to believe her, because why would any, young, hot, attractive woman be into an old guy? Like, that's not how that works. And that's very early to be talking about those kinds of relationships, and how two people with an age gap could genuinely love each other like that. And how she was actually devastated. I mean, a lot of times, yes, maybe it is the wife. Isn't that like the first thing they tell, detect it, right? It's always the spouse or something. But it's legitimate that she walks in and is trying to find a pulse, and you're going to get blood on you. There's a reasonable explanation, and nobody's listening to her because obviously she did it and their minds are made up.
In retrospect, looking back at this movie, what I'm a little disappointed in is it hasn't really had an effect on there haven't been like tons of movies with this tone in the 20 years since. And now Reese Witherspoon has worked constantly since then, but off the top of my head, this is the only movie of hers I can think of.
Election.
Yeah, you mentioned Election earlier, John.
Yeah.
Joe.
That's two. Thank you. Legally Blonde 2. That's 3.
Right.
Sweet Home Alabama.
Yep.
Which was not filmed in Alabama, so I am furious about that one.
Okay.
But
and this was definitely filmed in Cambridge.
See, so there is that.
It's interesting because this film actually it's more of a cult film when you think about it. Like, it's not like you said, it hasn't really become the foundation for a stereotype shattering kind of genre. This is like, there's 2 movies, a spin-off direct to video kind of thing, and then the stage musical, the Broadway musical.
That's right.
Yeah, which we saw that coming to Memphis, and my wife and I are both like, we're going, and we're taking your mother with us.
Nice.
She was like, we're gonna what now? Like, oh, trust me, we haven't seen it either, but you're gonna love this.
Well, how is it?
It's pretty fun.
It is fun.
Good.
Yeah.
But you were talking before about like the legalities and the accuracy, right? I'm not a lawyer. I don't think anybody on this stream is a lawyer. However, there's a YouTube channel I want to recommend called Legal Eagle.
Oh God, I love him.
He's great.
Yes.
Real Lawyer did a reaction to Legally Blonde, and he talks about what is and is not accurate throughout the whole movie. And I think it's like a 25-minute video. Highly recommend.
I will put that in the show notes. Now, I want to go back to something I think I might be misinterpreted. I love Reese Witherspoon. She is hilarious, and I've probably seen her more on talk shows than I have. But right now on social media, she is hilarious, and I absolutely love all of the stuff that she's doing today. And
she also was on the Home Edit, their Netflix show? It's an organization show on Netflix where these people come in, like redo your closet, but they went in and redid her like memorabilia closet as almost like a Legally Blonde museum, and you see all the memorabilia she still has, and it's pretty great.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually a small niche if you want to look for it of legal comedies, but it's most of the stuff I've seen in that niche, most of it holds up pretty well because, like I said, I mentioned My Cousin Vinny earlier. A Fish Called Wanda comes up. Intolerable Cruelty with Clooney. Liar Liar with Jim Carrey.
Funny.
And apparently a Woody Allen movie, Bananas, is apparently legal based, which I can't tell you because I won't watch it.
No, I'm good.
And then Then there's, I guess, mentioned earlier, Jury Duty, which if you're a Pauly Shore fan, knock yourself out.
Congratulations. I appreciate your fandom.
Yeah. And then Michael Richardson in one called Trial and Error. So, I mean, there you go.
I believe he played Trial.
Yes.
I would argue that that Suits was kind of a legal comedy TV show.
No, that's true. And Suits was on for a million years.
Yeah.
And
What was
now
on USA?
Yeah, and now it has royalty in it. So
that's true.
But I want to talk a minute about the cast that we didn't really get to. There are tons of people in it who have done, for one thing, Raquel Welch is in it.
Yeah.
What the heck? And I'd forgotten all about that. But Jennifer Coolidge, I absolutely love in she steals pretty much everything she does. And this movie came right after American Pie, and she's better in this, although everyone remembers her from that. And she's tremendous in this movie. And now, granted, Jennifer Coolidge kind of plays more or less similar people in lots of movies, but not a bad thing. She knows what she's doing. I dig it. And Jennifer Coolidge is great. Luke Wilson kind of just plays Luke Wilson.
As he always does.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah. And Selma Blair is great. Victor Garber is awful.
Victor Garber's fantastic, but
he's
Victor Garber.
He's the heel. He's
yes,
awful. Yeah.
Fantastically awful.
Yeah, because he comes in, you see it, you think he's like a good guy, and then we get to the sleaze moment, and you're like, oh no, not you.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, other than Vivian making an assumption, when Elle tells people what happened, not a single person disbelieves her.
Again, shocking. And this was years before.
Yeah.
That broke out in real life.
Yeah, and I think we also have to give a shout out to Alice Beasley as the advisor, because she was a delight in her few scenes.
Very Ghostbusters vibes.
Yes, very, very much that.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. No, Alice Beasley she's always good. The final thoughts? Are we maybe we're early, but go ahead.
I was gonna say we haven't even touched on the sequel or the fact that it got turned into a successful musical.
Well, Michael, you've seen the musical, so did they add a lot of story, or did they just put music into the movie story? I mean, what's the balance?
It's about the same, I think, isn't it? So it's been years since I've seen it. I've only seen it once.
I mean, this is my real job. Theater. I will preface it by saying that any movie turned musical is can be dicey, right? Some of them are real good, some of them are not at all. And a lot of people expect that they're going to go in and hear the cast singing the soundtrack they heard from the movie, which is not the case. If they're going to make a new musical, they're going to write original songs. But the songs are quite good. I think it's really witty. A lot of, the lines that you want to hear remain in the script,
sure,
right? Because then you'd have a riot. But, and they have to make it a little bit longer, because when you go to a stage musical, your sweet spot is about 2.5 hours, including a 15-minute intermission, right? And the movie's usually an hour and a half, right? So you've got to add some time. Usually that's done in song. Sometimes that's done in extra scenes. It's been a while since I watched it, but I can tell you, back in the day, they did I don't know if it was a live broadcast or a live to tape, but they broadcast the musical, Legally Blonde the musical, to MTV.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
it was broadcast on TV, which means you can probably find it somewhere. I don't know where, if you
Vimeo.
want to watch it.
I think somebody's put it on YouTube. I think
Probably.
I remember stumbling across it. So
Not that we condone that
No.
here on the
Yeah.
Classics Track.
No, how?
I would
dare
never tell
you.
people to search on Vimeo for anything that you might find that you shouldn't find anywhere that would get taken down.
Nope.
We're not telling you to do that.
Right.
We're just presenting you.
But it's definitely a fun show. It's not, the greatest musical you'll ever see. That's Into the Woods. But it's a good time.
Yeah. It's not going to sweep the awards like a Hamilton or a Wicked or
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Legally Blonde 2. Was there more? Yes, of course. There's more to be said for this character. There is apparently a script for Legally Blonde 3 that is out there, written by.
Supposedly it's in the works for like next year.
Yeah,
Okay.
May of 2022.
Great.
With
What's
Reese
the
Witherspoon back in
premise?
there.
Perfect.
Yes. Reese
Like,
Witherspoon doing awesome
is she
things.
the law professor? Is she the dean of the college? Like, what?
I don't know yet. I just know that they've announced it. MGM's announced it. So
I need more.
yeah.
I thought it was just internet speculation.
Well, I think it's, it came out just 2 years after, so we could do a Legally Blonde 2 panel in 2 years from now. It's 20th anniversary. But I think that it was, again, ahead of its time in talking about the subject matter about using animals. And, I mean, yes, that's been something that's been talked about for a while, but it was still kind of at the forefront of using a platform like a Hollywood movie to talk about like abusing animals is bad. Apparently we need a movie to tell us that, but okay.
Sure.
So I will watch it. It is not my favorite movie of all time, and I won't watch it as much as I will watch the original Legally Blonde. But it still has Bruce McGill is in it, and he's just, Bruce McGill, and you can't just not watch him and love him being ridiculous.
I recall it not being as good. It probably falls to that same category as a lot of the let's strike while the iron is hot and just pop a sequel out without a lot of thought.
However, it was 12 years later. So they wait, was it? Yes.
No, it was 2 years later. It was 2003.
I can't do math. We've discovered this.
Joe, once again,
3 minus 1 is 2.
2.
Yeah. Joe is from Alabama. They only got math about 10 years ago.
this many years ago.
Oh, poor Joe. I know which finger he wants to give us all.
It's this one, right?
Yep, that's the one. Gary does it well.
How dare you, Gary?
I think for me, it's like it suffers in 2 points. It suffers from the fact that it's not the freshness that the first one is. All sequels have that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the second, for me, watching it, it felt like they found another movie with a smart woman and hammered it into Legally Blonde 2.
Yeah.
Which is another thing they'll do with a strike while they, as Joe put it, the strike while they iron hot sequel. It's like, look, well, this movie's about robots. Let's call it iRobot. We have the rights to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a fast turnaround to come up with a truly new and interesting idea.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Kyle.
And I have not invested the time in the direct-to-DVD semi-sequel that came out in 2009, Legally Blondes, just because I'm like, I can't bring myself to, no. I can't.
So, and boy, direct-to-DVD sequels, let me just tell you about Home Alone 4. No, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to say a word. But Legally Blonde 3, however, is coming out in 2022. So apparently it's happening. And it's being written by not the original screenwriters, apparently, but by Mindy Kaling, who is great. Mm-hmm. And also by Dan Gore, who does Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is also great. So high hopes. That's good stuff. Both of those folks are very funny people.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. And I think to kind of wrap this up, though, I don't think anybody can really understate how unexpectedly good this movie is. Because of the way it subverts expectations, the way it subverts stereotypes. And just, I was like, wait, what? I remember walking out going, I really liked this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a huge success. It only cost them like $18 million to make. It made $141 million, which is again why we got Legally Blonde 2 so fast. It's like everybody went, wait, this is great.
Yeah.
And this is also still referenced in law schools, sort of as a joke. But a friend of mine who recently passed the bar in the last couple of years tells stories about her professors saying, look, I know you love Legally Blonde, but you're not Elle Woods. You can't wear pink suits to court.
And if you're a fan of Legal Eagle and his takes on legal law in TV and movies, he did do a Legally Blonde episode. I recommend that. Also, his one on.
Do you listen to your panels, Gary?
I'm pretty sure she said that about 10 minutes ago.
She may have. I'm sorry.
This many.
I'm not imagining that.
The work phone went off a few minutes ago, and that's why I was muted. So I may have been distracted for a minute with a work call.
Sure.
Right.
Gary, look, Gary, do you want to go to the drab room?
I'm in the pink room. You can't send me to the drab room.
Dang it. Okay. Yeah. You're right.
The power of pink repels you.
The one thing that I'm sad that we didn't talk about is the amazing writing, all the sassy comebacks and all of the great quotes, like when they go to the boyfriend's trailer and Elle is doing all the legalese and she goes, "I'm taking the dog, dumbass." Like just. When they're talking about, do you remember that time we were in the hot tub for 4 hours? Well, this is so much better than that. And then Vivian looks at him and goes, 4 hours, and she's clearly like looking him up and down. Like just so much of the writing and the acting was so on point for so many of the scenes. It was just wonderful.
Yeah, everyone who comes in contact with Elle in this movie comes out of the encounter a better person in some way.
Yeah.
She just has that superpower, the superpower of pink.
That is a very cool thing. So let's go around the interwebs and tell people where you can be found. Michael.
You can find me doing all sorts of crazy pop culture stuff, including week-to-week Doctor Who talking on my blog. It's creativecriticality.net.
ToniAnn.
You can find me on the Twitter at Jersey_Devil86, or you can find me at thegeekydevil.com, where I am watching Star Trek for the first time, and I am almost done with Voyager. I'm in like the last 6 episodes.
Congratulations.
And then on to Enterprise. Lord help me. Well,
hey,
Nemesis.
The 5th season's great.
I've got.
The Nemesis first, and then Enterprise.
I'm so sorry.
I apologize.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So you're doing release order.
Yes. I started with the original series in January of 2020, and then COVID happened and life got crazy. So I'm trying to get back on the train, but I'm so close to being done with Voyager, and by God, if they don't get home and something explodes, I'm going to be really sad. But I have avoided like 30-year spoilers, so please don't tell me anything. Thank you.
Okay.
And I've made Sue's brain explode right now.
Yeah. And Sue.
I talk a lot about Star Trek.
That thing that ToniAnn is just now watching.
I am on Twitter at Spaltor, SPALTOR. You can hear me talk about Star Trek at womenatwarp.com. And this weekend, July 17th and 18th, 2021, my podcast, Women at Warp, is hosting the IDIC Podcast Festival. 16 plus hours of Star Trek content coming at you from 16 different Star Trek podcasts. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be great. It's going to celebrate the infinite diversity of our podcasting community. So if you are interested in that, check out womenatwarp.com/IDIC-fest.
And all the links to everything that we're talking about will be in the YouTube show notes when we are done. But Gary Mitchell, where can people find you, sir?
You can find me on the Twitter at Gary_Mitchel, Mitchell with one L. Yes, Star Trek fans, it's my real name. Jess has actually just started a Star Trek rewatch as well for a panel for somebody who may be on this at Dragon Con. And today we just watched that episode with Gary Mitchell, and I was like, yeah, I got to get me some silver contacts. I really
You know who else is going to be on that panel? That guy.
That guy?
What?
Yeah. And one of the guys in the comments.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I'm never asked to be on Star Trek panels.
You got stuff to do on your own track, man.
I'm just saying that if someone's going to be on a Star Trek panel, maybe someone whose name. But no. Next, you can find me here every week with this guy. Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe.
They don't put me on panels about the Crowe either, dang it.
And you can also find me next week on the Execute Chapter 66 podcast, where at a convention congregate last weekend, I got to interview Timothy Zahn.
Ooh.
Nice.
So that'll be next week. Chad and the gang and I will play the interview, and it's going to be awesome.
And we're what, T-50 from Dragon Con now?
Less than.
Yeah.
Like
So,
48, 47.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you want to see a bunch of us live in person,
We've been doing this virtually for since the Pandelirium hit, and now we will be performing in live action.
Yeah, we're at 60 some of these now. I stopped counting him at 17. We've been doing this since like April of last year. I went back and looked. But that's why you should join our YouTube channel.
Exactly.
And go back and watch the past of these, which some of these people have been on.
Mm-hmm. So you have options. We have provided you with things to do so you can avoid work and family commitments.
That's right.
That is why we are here. And we will be back next week with our next quarantine panel topic, which is... Thank you, Gary, for being here, because I forgot it last week.
Yes.
When you were here.
Well, sorry, I had to see Black Widow. I had to see Black Widow in the theater. So next week's panel is Animated Afternoons, Greatest Syndicated Cartoons.
Yay. Those will be excellent. That'll be fun. We will see you then. And join us then when Gary Mitchell will say...
As an animated character, I'm not allowed to wear pants.
That's strangely in character for you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't see what the difference is.